9. The Raid. Sitting next to the driver of the Freikorps lorry, Lieutenant Hemmings checked the magazine of his Luger. He slammed the magazine back into the butt of the automatic, remembering the way the girl had humiliated him in the General's office. Hemmings smiled with sadistic pleasure. To the gang of Freikorps thugs in the lorry, this was just another routine raid. But to Hemmings it was sweet revenge. His little chess game had paid off, and he was about to make the winning move. Soon the girl would be in his hands for good this time. Once the girl talked, he would have the doctor as well. Hemmings noticed a spot on his lapel and dabbed it with a moistened finger. The finger came away pink. The spot was blood. Ace's blood. He licked the end of his finger and smiled. Pop turned to Ma Barker. "How did you come to bring her here?" "She was on the release truck with me." Ma Barker touched Ace's swollen lip. "The bruise is genuine enough, and so's the blood." Pop shook his head. "Proves nothing. Any good spy'd take a punch or two to be more convincing." The old beaten-up prisoner trick," said Ma Barker, "and I fell for it." The little man darted to the door and peered through the glass panel. "She's a plant, all right. I'd slit her throat right now if I were you. You'll need to dispose of the body before they get here." There was something strangely familiar about his scurrying, mouse-like movements, and suddenly Ace realised where she'd seen him before. "Hang on a minute! I'm not the one who's working with the Freikorps. You are!" Ignoring the knife, she turned indignantly to Ma Barker. "This is the man who turned us in, me and the doctor. He overheard us talking in one of those pavilions and shopped us for the sake of the reward." There was total conviction in Ace's voice, and it was quite clear she was telling the truth. Ma Barker's knife was still at Ace's throat, but suddenly the revolver in Pop's hand was covering the mousy little man. "Well, Arnie?" said Pop gently. The little man looked from Ma to Pop, licking suddenly dry lips. "All right, what if I did?" he said defiantly. He turned appealingly to Pop. "Look, you know the position I'm in. I keep in with the Freikorps and the occupation authorities, so I can let you know what's going on. Warn you about raids, things like that, the way I did just now." Pop didn't say anything. Neither did Ma Barker. The little man swallowed and went on. "So if I'm going to keep in with them, I have to give them something from time to time. Bits of useless information, reports on what you're not going to do. It all helps to tie them up watching the wrong targets. And if someone's a real traitor and a danger to you, well, maybe I plant a bit of evidence and inform on them." He looked expectantly at his audience. "True enough, Ducky," said Ma Barker. "But it all has to be cleared with us, doesn't it? Every scrap of info you give 'em, every poor soul you turn in, we're supposed to know about it first. Now, I don't recall giving the okay on shopping this young lady and her mate. Do you, Pop?" "No, I don't, Ma." The muzzle of the huge revolver was still trained steadily on the little man. "So I used my initiative," said Arnie. Pop shook his head. "Initiative can be dangerous, Arnie. Can't it, Ma?" "Too true," said Ma. "You start shopping people freelance-like, you may get a taste for it." "You might start thinking about me and Ma," said Pop, "thinking how much you could tell them about us, and how well they'd pay for it." Arnie looked so terrified that Ace almost felt sorry for him. "Listen," he said desperately. "I heard these two shooting their mouths off at the festival. Danger to themselves and everyone else. I knew they were strangers, so I thought..." "So you thought about the nice big rewards," said Ace. "Don't you realise we came here to help you?" "Help us? You?" said Arnie. Again he turned in appeal to Ma Barker and Pop. "That funny little bloke who was with her, he wasn't scared a bit when they pulled him in. He just sort of took charge of everything. Soon after that he's riding around in a Freikorps limo with a Freikorps driver, and she was with him." Now everyone was looking at Ace. "All right, that bit's true," said Ace. The knife moved closer to her throat. "But I can explain," she said hastily. "It'll need to be good, Ducky," said Ma Barker. Ace looked at Pop. "You know that bloke who had the nasty accident by the river when we first arrived? Well, the doctor and I reached him after you, but before the guards. Before he died, he gave the doctor a black leather folder with a gold swastika badge inside. It said he was some kind of inspector, only in German." "Reich Inspector General," said Pop softly. "Hitler's personal investigator. Go anywhere, see anyone, do anything, no questions asked. We caught a big one, all right. Right, said Ace. Well, when we got Nick, the doctor used that badge, convinced them he was this Reich thingamy. He'd never get away with it, said Pop. You don't know the doctor, said Ace. He's got the cheek of the devil. Sometimes I think he is the devil. You don't mean it actually worked? Asked Ma Barker. Ace nodded. Believe me, it worked like a charm. We're both staying at Freecore HQ, with the whole Freecore jumping whenever the doctor opens his mouth. It was Ma Barker who pointed out the apparent flaw in her story. If you and your mate are so well in with the Freecore, how come you ended up with me on that truck? Ace groaned. What was that about weaving tangled webs? We're supposed to be making some mysterious investigation into the British resistance movement, right? So the doctor spun them a yarn about how I was being forced to help trap you, so I could use it as a cover to find you and help you. I know it sounds daft, but it makes a sort of sense if you work it out. You're saying you're acting as a double agent, said Pop. That's right, said Ace. That's it exactly. I don't like double agents, said Pop. They get confused, forget which side they're really on. Like Arnie here, said Ma. Pop said, What do you reckon, Ma? It seems to me there's not much to choose between 'em. Either we let 'em both go, or we kill 'em both, said Ma cheerfully. Might be safer, said Pop. Better safe than sorry, said Ma. Pity, though. She seems like a nice kid, really. The knife was back at Ace's throat. Pop covered the little man with his revolver. Well, I shall miss you, Arnie, old chap, he said with one of his sudden lapses into posh vowels. No hard feelings, eh? There was the sudden roar of lorry engines from outside. Through the grimy glass, Ace could just about make out the shapes of several lorries and of armed men jumping down. It's too late for all of us now, said Arnie bitterly. I told you there was something going on round here. It's a raid! A megaphone-amplified voice blared at them from outside. This is a field unit of the British Free Corps. The area is surrounded. Do not move from where you are. Do not attempt to escape or you will be shot. Hemmings jumped down from the lorry and watched the Free Corps unit swing into action. It was an operation they had carried out many times before. Already men were racing round to the back of the CAF, while others were making their way to the tops of nearby buildings to cover the roof. Hemmings' sergeant, a burly man with a bruised face, ran up and saluted. Target secure, sir. Carry on. The sergeant nodded to a corporal who ran to the cafe door and kicked it open, covering those inside with his Sten gun. Hemmings strolled inside. A peaceful and innocent scene met his eyes. A girl and a man sitting together at a table quietly drinking tea, a fat old woman wiping the counter, and a tall old man slicing a greasy-looking chunk of corned beef. Fancy a cup of char and a wad, sir? Said the old woman cheerfully. It's only the ersatz corned beef, but you can put plenty of mustard on it. That's ersatz as well, of course. Papers, said the corporal, cutting through the flow of words. Don't bother, drawled Hemmings. These ladies and gentlemen will be accompanying us back to HQ. Wait outside, will you, Corporal? Oh, and send in my sergeant. The corporal saluted and left. Hemmings looked round the CAF. Well, 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 what a happy reunion. And here's another old friend. The sergeant with the bruised face came into the room and saluted. That's the girl, sir, he said, pointing to Ace. She joined up with the old woman there as soon as we left the release truck. I said I was going off to look for a drink. Then I hung about out of sight and followed them here. Well done, Sergeant. Write out your deposition back at HQ. Sir! The sergeant gave the Hitler salute and left. Hemmings looked triumphantly at the girl, but she was still defiant. Well, well, said Ace, the old beaten-up prisoner trick, and I fell for it. She gave him a scornful look. I don't know what you think you're up to. Then let me tell you, interrupted Hemmings. I put you on a truck with someone suspected of resistance activities, and I put one of my men on board as well. He sees you make contact with the suspect and accompanies her to her lair, shall we say. There I find you consorting with a number of other suspicious characters. We've had our suspicions of Ma Barker for a very long time, and her friend here has been on our wanted list for many years." He nodded to the old man behind the counter. "A pleasure to meet you at last, Major Popplewell. You were one of Colonel Gubbin's stalwarts, I believe. You've had a long run, but it's over now." "Dunno what you mean, Gov," said the old man stolidly. The girl still wouldn't give up. "Listen, you pompous twit. I'm supposed to contact the Resistance. That was the whole point of this morning's charade. And it worked too. I was on the way to gaining their trust till you turned up." "Ah, but there's the cunning of it," said Hemmings almost admiringly. "You were making contact with the Resistance under cover of making contact with the Resistance. The classic double bluff. Brilliant." "Rubbish! You've no proof." "I shall have all the proof I need soon after we get back to HQ. Signed confessions from all of you." "I wouldn't bank on it, Ducks," said Ma Barker. "Oh, everybody confesses, eventually." Hemmings looked round the little group. 3 of the faces were hard and determined. He turned his attention to the 4th. "Besides, even if you 3 hold out, there's always Mr. Arnold. In return for a promise of immunity, he'll sign a confession implicating the lot of you. Then I shoot you and close the file." Everyone looked at Arnold, but he wouldn't look back. Hemmings smiled. It was quite clear they all realised he was right. Arnold would say anything to save his skin. The girl made a last desperate effort. "Look! You know who the doctor really is." "I know what he is. That fun little man of yours is a fake. I know it. I feel it in my guts." "What guts?" said the girl contemptuously. Hemmings smiled happily, feeling the familiar warm glow. "You really do ask for it, don't you? What are you, some kind of masochist?" "Don't worry, I can provide all the pain you need." He drew back his fist. Ace stood poised, ready to duck, and to retaliate with a kick that would ruin Hemmings' elegant pose for quite some time. She had decided, quite calmly, that her best chance was to provoke him into killing her. Then she heard a voice from the doorway. "Any chance of a cup of tea and a currant bun?" It was the doctor, looking fittingly sinister in his black leather coat, black hat, and monocle. The effect was only slightly spoiled by the red-handled umbrella, which seemed to add a note of unsuitable frivolity. "Splendid," said Hemmings happily. "A clean sweep." "Ah, but who is the sweeper, and who the swept?" said the doctor mysteriously. "How does the poet put it? If the red slayer thinks he slays, or if he thinks that he be slain, he knows not well the subtle ways. I touch and pass and touch again." Something like that, anyway. "Time for another spin of the wheel, I think." The doctor stepped aside, and to Ace's astonishment, General Strasser came into the cafe. Behind him were 2 stormtroopers, not from the Free Corps, but from the dreaded SS. The doctor's voice crackled with authority. "General, I regret to say that through a combination of malignance and stupidity, this officer has come close to ruining a most delicate and vital operation, essential to the security of the Reich." General Strasser looked worried. "I am distressed to hear it, Herr Doctor. If there is anything I can do—" "There is," said the doctor decisively. "If he can be arrested and held incommunicado, the situation may yet be saved." "Of course, Herr Doctor," said General Strasser. "Nothing could be simpler." He nodded to the 2 SS men, who moved to either side of Hemmings, taking him in charge. "My general," began Hemmings. He broke off with a gasp of agony as one of the stormtroopers delivered a brutal kidney punch. "I do not think I gave you permission to speak," said Strasser placidly. "Would it assist the security of your operation, Herr Doctor, if this unfortunate officer were to hang himself in his cell? Better yet, he could be shot trying to escape, here and now, if you wish." "Go for it, Doctor," thought Ace. For a moment the doctor looked tempted, then he shook his head. "Perhaps not. It is possible his conduct has been overzealous rather than actually treasonable. With your permission, I will conduct a full inquiry when time permits. Meanwhile—" "Of course, Herr Doctor, he shall be held at your disposal." General Strasser snapped his fingers, and the SS stormtroopers marched Hemmings away. The General looked round the room. And these others? The nucleus of a resistance cell, said the doctor calmly, located by my assistant here, and turned. Incredible, murmured the General. And all in one day. Less than one day. In due time, said the doctor impressively, they will lead us to their colleagues, all their colleagues. But for the moment they must have complete freedom of action, freedom from surveillance even. If their fellow conspirators even suspect... Say no more, Herr Doctor. I shall leave them entirely to you. The General looked round the little cafe, seeming to feel something more was expected of him. A most charming little hostelry, he murmured. Care for a nice cuppa, General? Said Ma Barker wheedlingly. Or a nice slice of ersatz corned beef? On the house, naturally, we'd be honoured. Thank you, no, said the General hastily. Some other time, perhaps. If you will forgive me, Herr Doctor. The doctor showed him out. They heard shouted orders, the sound of departing cars and trucks. The doctor reappeared in the doorway. He stripped off his hat and coat and flung them over a chair. What about that cuppa, then? He asked plaintively. And is there any danger of any food? I'm so hungry I could even tackle ersatz corned beef. Real ham for you, Doctor, said Pop, reaching under the counter. And all you can eat. Ma Barker poured a hot, strong cup of tea and carried it over to the doctor. Gets a free-corps lieutenant arrested, shops us to the Gestapo and gets us right off the hook all in one breath, she said admiringly. She looked at Ace. You're quite right, Dux. What about? Ma Barker beamed. About your little mate here. He's got the cheek of the devil.